Hey everybody, welcome back to the O-20 series. I'm your host, FrSky Steve, and we're on episode 12 where we're talking about timers. And as you can see on my screen, I've got some timers populated on this default screen. So this is starting to look more like a bona fide radio, something that you would go out and fly with. I have 3 different timers, and they're very descriptive descriptions on each one of these, so I kind of have an idea, looking at them, what they do. Obviously, the first one is a 10-minute countdown timer, so I know that when this starts, it's going to count from 10 to 0. And I'm going to show you a couple different options on that. And then the next one is a throttle cut off timer. This is a Steve original. What I'm doing with this one is sometimes you're out flying around and you're getting telemetry off your battery, and you're able to tell how much battery you have left while you're flying. So we have a couple different sensors that do this. We have the Neuron ESCs that have built-in BECs that do it. We have the BECs. We have a lot of different ways to measure your pack voltage or your cell voltage or both. And you would like to know while you're flying that maybe you have a few minutes left of flying, and perhaps at the end of the flight you're wondering how long you're up there for. Or the other thing that might happen is that you start your plane up, maybe it's a gas plane, and you get to the end of the runway and somebody comes up to you and starts talking with you, and you stop. You think it's going to be a brief conversation, and a minute or two later they're still talking. You go out to the runway, you're ready to taxi off on the runway and take off, and then someone yells, landing. And you're kind of thinking to yourself, how long has this timer been on for? Or the other thing that could happen is that you could run out of time, this 10 minutes, and you see that you still have battery voltage left, but you want to know how long you were up there for. And there's just a lot of reasons why it's good to have both. So I'm going to show you how to set that up as well. The last one's an odometer. This is kind of interesting if you have a new plane, and especially things like turbine jets where every 25 hours you need to turn the turbine in to get serviced. You probably want to know how long you've been actively flying on that turbine for before you turn it in. I turned on odometer on my planes, and it was, I'd say, in the first 2 months I had about 6 hours on the motor. So it's just, they're all very useful, interesting things. You can get into them the old-fashioned way by clicking on there. I prefer to go into the airplane icon and timers because I can see an overview of all 3 timers at the same time. And what I'm seeing is that they all have names that we discussed before. And the modes, the first one is a countdown and it's a down. The other 2 are up timers. So what that means is they start at 0 and keep working. You can see we already have 22 seconds on the odometer. And the active, the value is, this is 10 minutes. I'm going to show you how to change that if you want to have a shorter time. And the active condition is throttle active. This one's really interesting. That's a Steve original right there with the throttle cut not. Or it's, what I'm saying, it's when not throttle cut. And I'll explain all about that. And as far as the odometer, it only works when the throttle's active. So let's get into the first one, and I'll kind of break it down for you. I don't build these things in front of you because, well, a couple reasons. I want to make sure they work, and I don't want to sit here and play with it and fix things in front of you. But this is, I think, the most complete one I have. This is a 10-minute countdown timer. And the first thing you're going to probably want to know how to do is change it to a value that makes sense for you. So what I would do is I would move this down. Let's say you need it to be 6 minutes. So I'm going to put it there. And then what I would do is I would come into here, hit the backspace key, change this to 6 minutes, give it a space. There you do. There you go. You have both 6-minute countdown on the name and 6-minute. Okay, start condition is throttle active. And what that means is you can see you have a few different choices: throttle hold, throttle cut, throttle active, telemetry active, RSSI low. Don't know why you would want to use RSSI low. So throttle active means that you've touched the throttle. And what will happen is you will have a default stop condition, which means that when the throttle gets down to 0, it stops counting. And maybe you don't want that. So there was something we had in the previous version of Ethos, I'm talking about before 1.5.x, which I believe is called Throttle Trigger. And what that was is as soon as the throttle started, it never stopped. So the idea was once you put the throttle up, it would keep counting down or up until you told it no more, or you would reset it. So how do you get that? Well, what you do is you turn on custom, and what I did is I set throttle cut as the stop condition, which means it's going to keep counting down until, in this particular situation, it will keep counting down until you no longer have time left on your screen. But if you have a count up, it will keep counting until throttle cut happens, and that's the only thing that will stop it. Okay, so we have that, and the reset is throttle cut. I just like throttle cut because it's very simple and straightforward. Persistent is the thing we use for odometer, which that means is that if you turn this on, it just keeps on counting. The value doesn't go away unless, especially if you turn off reset. So that's how, I'll show you how I set that up in a couple of minutes. I do have set voices up, and this is the only timer I have voices on. And there's two different types of voices. The first one is called the countdown voice, and you click on it, edit, I'll show you. You have a choice between countdown and beep countdown. So when you have the countdown, you get a 2-minute countdown, and it will keep counting down for 2 minutes. And I was remembering here that you actually, this will count down from 2 minutes, and every 30 seconds we'll give out a countdown. It will say 2 minutes, 1 minute 30, 1 minute, 30 seconds, etc. Okay, the next one is the play value, and at every 60 seconds it will call out the minute. So if we change it to 6 minutes, so starting at 5 minutes, we'll call out the 5-minute mark, the 4-minute mark, the 3-minute mark, and then it goes to the 2-minute mark. So the last audio condition that I forgot to add on this, even though I told you it's the most complete thing I had, is I need to have the beep countdown, and that is good only for the last 10 seconds, and it beeps every second. That it's telling you that every second that it's going to let you know that you're almost done with the flight. I'm going to change it to every 2 seconds because every second's kind of annoying. And then we go down to, I have all this set up. Look at this. It's beautiful. All right, so the throttle cut off. How did I set that up? I talked a little bit about this not condition. So this is pretty straightforward. It's called throttle cut off. It's an up. And then the only thing that's remotely interesting about this is this thing with the not condition. So a throttle cut is a system event, and I chose throttle cut. And you can't use throttle cut as a start condition because when your throttle cut is on, it just doesn't start. So what I did is I pressed this hamburger icon. Try it again. Press this hamburger icon. 3rd time's a charm. 4th time. All right. There it is. Long press on it. Hit invert. So I turned on invert, and what that did is it puts this exclamation point in front of throttle cut, and that means not throttle cut. So it's the opposite of throttle cut. So when the throttle cut is not on, which is what we want, it starts counting, and it starts counting up and it doesn't do anything special except for when I want to reset it, it will reset on throttle cut. And the last one was odometer. This one is probably the least sophisticated of all of them. It's an up, starts at 0, throttle active. But the thing that I use, there's no reset on here. So you see reset's blank, and I turn persistent on. And there's no audio actions or anything else like that. And so what that does is it just keeps track of how much time I actually have applied throttle to the motor, and it keeps track of it from day to day, from flight to flight. It just keeps counting upwards. Wonderful thing to work with. And once again, to see it working, you go back to the home screen, and when I hit the F, it starts counting. So I turn off throttle cut right now, and even though I haven't hit the throttle, it's starting to count upwards. And let's say you're ready to take off now, you call it out, people say, yeah, you're cool to take off. You turn the throttle on, and this starts counting down, and you can see everything is counting now. It's perhaps going to drive you a little bit crazy. You've got another 5 minutes and 45 seconds to go with this, and then you've been off the throttle cut for the last 36 seconds, and the odometer keeps working. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the throttle down, but nothing, the only thing that stops is the odometer, so I know that the throttle is now all the way off, but I can see that the timer is still counting down from 6 minutes, and I still know the throttle cut is off. How do I reset everything? I just put the switch F back up, and we are now back to where we want to be, except the odometer is going to keep counting. So as soon as I turn it back off, you can see that the throttle cut's off, and as soon as I turn the motor, ooh, that was not good. As soon as I turn the motor back on, you can see that it starts counting. These two start counting again. Turn the motor off. This stops counting. Reset. I should be ready to reset. Alright, there we go. And we're good. And with that, we have ourselves a complete radio. I'm sorry I had to struggle a little bit with this. It's a little bit difficult to work with in the simulator. It's a lot easier to work with on the actual transmitter itself. But I think you get the idea. If you have any questions, feel free to message me. Have yourself a great day. Thanks.